Welcome back, Mando.
Oh, ho, ho. Greetings, Bucketheads. Mavar Tagar. Welcome to our 297th suspiciously Sithy episode of Mandovision. I am your host, Nargai Tom, and thank you so much for checking out this small independent Star Wars podcast. We're so glad you're here. Hit us up on those socials at Mando_Vision on Twitter and Instagram, and at Blue Sky, just Mandovision. Email the show, mandovisiontom@gmail.com, and make sure you're liking, subscribing, following, and sharing the show with all the Mandalorians in your covert. All right, Bucketheads, we're back for another Star Wars Rebels rewatch episode. And oh, baby, is Season 2 off to a rollicking start. What a good time we're having here. From the extreme action-packed scenarios that opened Season 2 in the first episode in Part 1 of the Siege of Lothal, to Darth Vader's machinations in Part 2 right now. Insidious stuff, but great to see the Dark Lord of the Sith at like the peak of his Vaderness, right? So Vadery, so impressive. You know, it's one of the things that's most fun about going into this period of the Star Wars timeline is seeing Vader sort of at the heights of his awesomeness and being the Dark Lord of the Sith. So this opening salvo for Season 2 of Rebels has been a delight to rewatch. From the Ralph McQuarrie inspired visuals of Darth Vader, you know, really leaning into those concept art that McQuarrie did for the original Star Wars, and just to seeing how powerful he is, seeing how strong he is. Very, very awesome stuff. And so, without further ado, really, I think it's time to kind of just go ahead and get into this episode, start breaking it down, start talking about it, because there's a lot that happens in here, a lot of things going on, and let's just do it, all right? So let's get those particulars. Let's give the credit where credit is due, my friends. This is Star Wars Rebels, Season 2, Episode 2, The Siege of Lothal, Part 2. Original air date, June 20th, 2015. Directed by Brad Rao. Written by Henry Gilroy. Our principal cast this week: Taylor Gray is Ezra Bridger, Vanessa Marshall is Harrison Dula, Freddie Prinze Jr. is Kanan Jarrus, Tia Sakar as Sabine Wren, Steve Blum is Zeba Orielos, and a bunch of other people. Dave Filoni is Chopper. D. Bradley Baker comes back into the fold as some Imperials in this one, specifically Admiral Constantine. David Oluwalo is, of course, Agent Kallus. Ashley Eckstein back as Ahsoka Tano. James Earl Jones as Darth Vader. Billy D. Williams returns as Lando Calrissian. And Sam Witwer back in the fold as well as Lando's droid Willie and Emperor Palpatine. How about that? Good job, Sam Witwer. Way to play the game and get all of those voice roles. Sam Witwer's Emperor, I think, is in my opinion, just heads above what Tim Curry was doing at the end of the Clone Wars. Just my 2 cents on the matter. Our plot for this week's episode: after being confronted by Darth Vader, the Ghost Crew seek help from Lando Calrissian to leave Lothal and continue the fight against the Empire with the rest of the Rebel fleet. Well, my friends, Darth Vader has something to say about that, and they aren't gonna like it. So let's go ahead. It's time. Strap on your buckets. Let's go.
Get out of here. We'll hold them off. You're going to have to relocate the covert. This is the way. This is the way.
So we already mentioned the Ralph McQuarrie visual aspects of Vader since his appearance at the end of Season 1 in Rebels here. But this episode features something else. It takes something else to another new heights, in my opinion. Again, since the show has started, we have heard familiar musical keys, musical tones, musical cues throughout this show so far, but I think in this episode in particular, Kevin Costner and his team take it up to the next level here, as we hear a multitude of familiar musical cues throughout this episode, kind of helping to launch this into new heights as we begin to like re-explore the Force and the mysteries of the Jedi and the Sith. It's fun stuff here. So we dive right back in to where we left off. We have a lightsaber fight versus Vader, and it's the classic master and apprentice 2-on-1 versus the bad guy, which I still feel is like really insanely unfair, and it seems odd that it would be like a Jedi philosophy to like have uneven odds in lightsaber combat. But as Vader demonstrates, clearly two Jedi are needed to attempt to tackle him, and I use the term Jedi loosely as Kanan Jarrus never finished his training, and Ezra has barely begun his. So it's very visually apparent throughout that Vader is having the upper hand, that he's dominating this fight. I mean, look at his stance. Look at the way he goes about it. You know, he's so strong in both his skill set and physical prowess and in the Force that he's using one hand to beat Kanan and Ezra. You know, Kanan in particular, two-handed lightsaber approach, not enough to combat the strength of Darth Vader. And also of note, I mean, just look how towering Vader is in these episodes here. I mean, he is ginormous compared to Kanan. But Vader has a plan here. Now, we're not quite privy to the plan. Vader has several opportunities here to kill Kanan and Ezra both. But I think it becomes pretty clear early on that he's toying with them. He's playing around. Vader has an end game in mind, and it's not this. This is just setting the stage, letting the rebels think that they've gained the upper hand, think that they've escaped with military-grade shield generators. But that's not the case. And that's what's going on in the background here as Kanan and Ezra engage. Is Hera and Chopper are loading up military-grade shield generators. Sabine and Zeb are attempting to aid from a distance. They have some thermal detonators. They launch them, causing some ATSTs to come crashing down, thinking they're going to kill Vader with that. Not so fast, my friends. Vader catching the ATSTs and launching them back. And then just being the visually intimidating character that he is, as he just stands there and looms over everything. He also launches back at Sabine some blaster bolts that she fires as they're departing, trying to give some cover for Kanan and Ezra to make it back to the Imperial shuttle that they're stealing. But Vader easily bats those back right into Sabine, luckily wearing her Beskar armor to absorb the blows. But still, a humbling moment for young Sabine Wren. So the Spectres escape, but again, it's what Vader's been anticipating the entire time. He kind of wants them to leave, but he knows they're not going to leave Lothal. Like, he knows he's able to anticipate everything they are going to do. And this is also an opportunity that when we get back to the team, that Kanan has to inform Ezra of what a Sith Lord is, that this is different than when they fought the Grand Inquisitor. This is something else entirely, something far more dangerous than they are possibly prepared to handle. And Ezra seems to take it all in stride. He's too young and naive to be scared of Jedi ghost stories, I think, in many senses. But Kanan's fear is real. Kanan believes that they are completely and hopelessly outmatched against this person. And he has to sort of temper that naivety in Ezra, or it's going to lead Ezra to a bad place. Vader, meanwhile, he knows that the rebels aren't leaving Lothal, and he wants to strike a blow at them. So he orders the destruction of Tarkin Town via Callus, and that's not nice. That's not a nice thing. But this is what Vader's doing. Vader's sending messages left and right across the board. Again, the Empire at the height of its power. All right. So the ghosts of the Spectres in their stolen Imperial shuttle, they reach out and they cut a deal with Lando Calrissian. So Lando's off planet, so the only time we get to see him is on that holocall. But we get to meet Lando's very laid back, personal attaché droid, and W1LE Willie has a very laid back personality, voiced by Sam Witwer. And through Willie, we get some ideas for a false transponder plan, right? They got these things, and they're going to launch them out of the ship, and it's going to fool the Empire so that the rebels can run the blockade and escape from Lothal, which is what's going to happen. Meanwhile, there's a little moment of Ezra and Kanan as they ride bikes back to witness the destruction of Tarkin Town, realizing that the people of Tarkin Town have been taken prisoner, are now prisoners of the Empire. And Kanan lays out that, like, listen, the stakes have been raised. There are now consequences for the actions that we take against the Empire. And this is Ezra's first taste of seeing those consequences. So it's a fairly big moment as again, we realize that the scale of what the Spectres are doing is raised. And like they're not just going beneath the Imperial notice now. Like, they have become a legitimate threat. And because of that, there are legitimate consequences. And the people of Tarkin Town are paying those consequences right now with the destruction of their town and their arrests. All right, so again, we have the freight transponders, and we rocket away from Lothal with relative ease, it seems like. Again, the Imperial commander, Constantine, not so thrilled, but again, part of the plan. Vader and Callus had a plan all along, and it was, hey, we got a tracker on this ship. We're going to let these rebels think they're doing all the things they needed to get away. You know, we're going to pursue them just enough so they feel in danger. But they're going to lead us back to the nest of rebels, right? That they're going to then swoop in and destroy the mounting rebellion against the Empire in one fell swoop. Now, as the Spectres escape from Lothal, and they're in hyperspace, an important conversation is to be had, as Kanan is still unsure if they should even be going back to the rebels. Because, again, Kanan liked the way things were when they were operating independently on their own. He expressed his resistance to join a military outfit like this Rebel Alliance is beginning to turn into. But it's Ezra who acts as the tiebreaker and says that, you know, ultimately being with the rebels is going to mean being in a position to help Lothal down the road. You know, they can't do anything on their own, but helping the rebels is going to put them in a position for the rebels to come and help Lothal later on. And so Kanan doesn't put up an argument against that. Stays very, very silent. But yes, indeed, the Spectres going back to the Rebel Alliance, as if we had any doubt personally. It's very, very interesting, though. Good conversation. Now we begin that the fleet. I'm sorry. In their stolen ship, the Spectres arrive back to the fleet, and as soon as they dock, a transmission is sent from their stolen Imperial ship, alerting the Empire of where they are at. So they realize the ship has been tracked. They go to tell Admiral Sarto that they got to get out of there. The Empire's coming. When a lone TIE fighter emerges from hyperspace. That would be the TIE fighter of one, Darth Vader. Now, this is a fun aspect of Darth Vader that we don't get to see nearly enough of, and that is Darth Vader as the cunning yet savage pilot that he is. Vader, alone, in a TIE fighter, going up against Phoenix Squadron and the blockade runners that consist of this small rebel fleet. It is impressive. It is awesome. It is top tier Vader as a total BA, all right? It's great stuff. Can't recommend it enough. And ultimately, as the A-wings of Phoenix Squad are being savaged by Vader, Hera decides it's time to get in the fight. So the crew of the Ghosts goes to the Ghost. And Ahsoka Tano is going to come along for the ride. And as the Ghost begins to make a difference, begins to buy time for the Rebel fleet to escape, they wonder, what's the deal with this pilot? We sense the Force is strong with him. Who could this pilot be? It's sort of a funny thing from an audience perspective, right? Because we're along for the ride. We know who's in the TIE fighter. We get it. It's very distinctly Darth Vader's ship. Darth Vader's been in the episode. Like, we're in the know here while our heroes are not. But it leads to a really great moment of the episode, and I want to go ahead and cue that up for us. So take a listen. It's probably like the most emotionally significant portion of the episode here, as another is sort of like this layered emotional complexity comes into the story. It's mostly stuff for us, the audience, to know, but for other characters in the show, again, everything begins to go differently, right? Ezra and Kanan over here, Ahsoka's over here with what's about to happen, and we as the audience just get to sort of bask in the glory of this. All right, so check it out.
Back on Lothal, I felt something. Kanan did too. The fear, the anger, the hate. It's the Sith Lord we faced.
The apprentice lives.
An incredible moment as Kanan and Ahsoka using the Force to reach out and figure out who this Dark Lord is. Well, guess what? It goes two ways. And actually, they weren't trying to figure out who the Dark Lord is. They're trying to figure out who the TIE pilot is. It's the Dark Lord of the Sith. And so that is a two-way street. And Vader feels the presence, recognizes the presence of his former apprentice. The presence of his former apprentice. That's a tricky sentence to say. And I suspect Ahsoka has some very strong feelings as well that she needs to process, and we'll talk about that a little bit later on in the episode. But a key moment here, because again, remember the time that Rebels came out. The Clone Wars wasn't done yet. It was canceled. At the height of its storytelling, Ahsoka had left the Jedi Order, but we never knew what her fate was post. We never really knew what her final fate was. So her appearance in Rebels was amazing and exciting and great. But we never really know, was that the final moment between Anakin and Ahsoka when she walks away from the Order? For a long time it was. And of course, as we got the final season of the Clone Wars, it became more impactful. It became more, Ahsoka became more aware of what was going on as she witnesses the fall of the Jedi and the rise of the Empire. So for this moment, and now that, again, we have the context that Vader did believe Ahsoka to be dead, and he learns that she is, in fact, not. And she is, in fact, in league with these rebels. But again, a two-way street. I suspect the reason why Ahsoka screams, why Ahsoka faints like she does here, is because she's overwhelmed by the feelings of anger and hate that emanate from Vader. But also, my suspicion, which I think she confirms later on in the episode, the underlying belief that she recognizes that feeling, that presence on the other end of the Force probing that she does. Just an incredible moment for the show. More Imperial forces arrive. The rebels are trying to escape. Hera baits the Emps into a trap and is able to hyperspace away before the tractor beams engage, but they engage just in time to snag Vader. So, but Vader did his job. The rebels are severely incapacitated. He destroys their capital ship. He destroys Phoenix Squadron. And by all accounts, has pretty much accomplished his mission. He feels he's broken this small rebel fleet. They may be on the run, but they're sort of shattered. They're not what they were. They're not going to have the audacity to go after Imperial freighters again and things like that, right? He believes he has the upper hand here, but he also has key information. So as we reach our epilogue for the episode here, Ahsoka, who is very visibly shook, she asks Ezra and Kanan about their confrontation with Vader. She says she doesn't know who the Sith is, but I don't believe her. I just think she can't confirm who the Sith is. And again, I'm not sure she's ready to open that can of worms. This is something that we'll get into more as the season plays out, because again, big things coming down the road here for season 2 here between Ahsoka and Vader. But I believe that I believe that Ahsoka very strongly believes that it is in fact Anakin, but she doesn't want to believe that it's Anakin. But we'll get there. We're going to play it out. Meanwhile, on the Imperial side of things, Vader calls Daddy Palpatine, tells him that the rebels are broken, tells him about Ahsoka, and Palpatine is fired up. And this is, again, Sam Witwer doing the voice of Palpatine in this episode, and I think just absolutely killing it, absolutely slaying his take on Palpatine. And Palpatine's fired up. He's like, hey, this Ahsoka, this could be a big deal because she could lead us to any other Jedi who survived Order 66. She can lead us to the children of the Jedi. But Vader's got one other Jedi in mind, and he says it. He's like, you mean like Kenobi, bro? I want me some of that Kenobi action. And we know where that goes. We know how that plays out. And Palpatine's like fairly dismissive. Yeah, maybe we'll see how it goes. We'll see how it goes. But yeah, this sets the stage for what's next. And Palpatine tells Vader to dispatch another Inquisitor to pursue the rebels. And again, big things are coming, but this sets the stage for the rest of the season here. And everything really launches forward here. Like everything on this season turns up an extra notch as the intensity, the action, and everything just continues to build as we get closer to a Rebel Alliance that resembles something that we recognize from A New Hope. Excellent episode. I give it 9 buckets. Easy peasy, lemon sneezy. So good. Really stellar Star Wars once again. And this second season is off to a raucous start. Cannot wait to keep diving through these episodes. If you are highly attuned to the series, you know what's coming up next. You know whose return is imminent. Good things on the way. And I couldn't be happier to be here reviewing and rewatching these episodes with you guys. It's so much fun. Let me know what you're thinking of these episodes, man. Were you as fired up as I was when Vader says that line, "The apprentice lives"? My goodness. Hit me up on those socials at Mando_Vision, Twitter and Instagram. Email the show, mandovisiontom@gmail.com. Don't forget about Blue Sky. I'm over there too. Just Mandovision over there. Make sure you're liking, subscribing, and following this show with all the Mandalorians in your covert. Because, again, Mandovision, the Buckethead Nation must grow. Thank you to all those who do take the time to do such things. I really do appreciate it. A great way to support the podcast is always sweet 5-star reviews. I truly take the time for you guys to do that because, again, it's small independent shows like us that need those the most. Every time I look at the iTunes podcast store or Spotify's podcast, there's like 75,000 new celebrities with a podcast. And it gets harder and harder for us smaller guys to coexist in the bandwidth, So thank you everyone who takes the time to do those 5-star reviews. They are truly appreciated. All right, Bucketheads, we're gonna get out of here. We'll be back next week talking about more Star Wars Rebels. Stay tuned for special episodes that may drop in between when Star Wars news breaks. We'll be here to cover it. All right. In the meantime, go out there, be great Star Wars fans. We'll be here with you next time. And remember, this podcast can only end one way. This is the way.
This is the way.
This is the way. This is the way.
Admiral, we have enemy ships in Sector 47.
It's a trap!